Good evening. Welcome to South Asia Newsline. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Here are the top stories we're tracking for you on Monday, the 18th of May. India and South Korea agree to boost defense cooperation. UN seeks humanitarian help for Myanmar's Rohingya migrants. And Indian doctors perform hand transplant on former Afghan army captain. And now for all the details, the United Nations has urged Thailand authorities to provide relief to hundreds of Rohingyas from Myanmar and migrants from Bangladesh. According to reports, at least 100 people on board a migrant vessel have died of hunger. A report.
As the situation of thousands of illegal migrants from Myanmar and Bangladesh continue to worsen by the day, the UN has urged countries including Indonesia and Thailand to provide humanitarian help to those washed ashore. This comes even as Thai authorities discovered more illegal migrants on its ports late on Sunday. Many have also reportedly reached Indonesia, where they have been kept in temporary camps. Bangladesh envoy to Indonesia visited one of the camps in East Aceh province in Indonesia to take stock of the situation. Many in the camps said they left their country in search of a better life.
Indonesia pun boleh, Malaysia pun boleh, saya tu Australia pun boleh, tu Amerika pun boleh, saya kerja boleh makan.
According to a UN estimate, some 25,000 Bangladeshis and Rohingyas have fallen victim to traffickers who lured them with the promise of better life in a foreign land this year alone. While a few have washed ashore, thousands are still believed to be adrift at the seas after countries like Malaysia and Thailand denied them permission to land, leaving them vulnerable. Most of these illegal immigrants are Rohingya Muslims who fled the religious persecution in Buddhist-majority Myanmar. The Rohingyas, despite living in Myanmar for generations, are considered as Bangladeshi migrants and haven't even been recognized as legitimate citizens till date.
Pakistan might call in its army to ensure security during Zimbabwe's cricket tour, which begins this week. Zimbabwe confirmed of sending its team to Pakistan after days of speculations in the light of growing militant attacks in the country.
Zimbabwe cricket team is set to reach Pakistan late on Monday to play the limited over series. Zimbabwe coach Dav Watmore said on Sunday that he looked forward to a successful tour and that arrangements by Pakistan were adequate. Over 5,000 security forces have been deployed in eastern Lahore, with 3,000 inside and around Gaddafi Stadium. Hundreds of police personnel took part in a full dress rehearsal of the safety plan for the visiting team over the weekend.
उनकी जो एडवांस टीम आई थी, उन्होंने हमारे इंतज़ामात पे हमने उनको जब अपनी ब्रीफिंग्स वगैरह दी और उनको विजिट्स करवाए, उन्होंने एतमाद का इजहार किया और अब ये विजिट हो रहा है तो हमारे लिए ज़्यादा चैलेंजिंग हो गया है. इसलिए रेंजर्स को भी इंगेज किया गया है और कोई ऐसा लूप होल इंशाअल्लाह ताला नहीं छोड़ा जाएगा.
Zimbabwe is said to become the first nation to send its cricketing squad to Pakistan ever since militants attacked the Sri Lankan team bus in 2009, killing 8 and injuring 9, including 6 visiting cricketers. Pakistan, which has not hosted any international teams in the country since the attack, has been making desperate attempts to bring international cricket back to the country. Zimbabwe had last week pulled out of the historic cricket tour to Pakistan after a terrorist attack on a bus in Karachi killed 45 people. It, however, withdrew its decision minutes later. Both the teams will play 2 2020 internationals starting on Friday and a 3-match one-day series later. The ICC has decided not to appoint its match officials for the series after receiving a report from its security consultant. Zimbabwe's players have reportedly been made to sign indemnity forms after their country's foreign ministry advised that a visit to Pakistan would not be safe.
India and South Korea on Monday inked a number of deals aimed at strengthening bilateral cooperation in various fields. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Seoul for the last leg of his 3-nation visit.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi was given a ceremonial welcome by President Park Geun-hye in South Korean capital Seoul. The two leaders discussed a number of bilateral and regional issues. The Indian Prime Minister also paid respects to Korean veterans at the National Cemetery. The two countries entered into a slew of agreements, including one on double taxation avoidance convention, cooperation in shipping and logistics, audiovisual co-production, transport, highways and new energy.
We are pursuing a comprehensive program of economic modernization that covers all sectors of our economy and all aspects of our policies and procedures. We have a special focus on infrastructure and developing a world-class manufacturing sector. Korea can be a leading partner in this enterprise.
The Indian Prime Minister, who is in Seoul with an aim to woo Korean investors to India, met top business leaders including Hyundai, Samsung and LG. The trade and economic relations between India and South Korea have gathered momentum in recent years, with bilateral trade reaching $17.57 billion in 2013. India is the 15th largest trade partner of Korea. Prime Minister Modi is also hoping to secure up to $10 billion in South Korea's soft loans to fund infrastructure projects. Later in the day, he also met the Indian community in the country. Prime Minister Modi also met UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. Prime Minister Modi reached South Korea after completing his one-day visit to Mongolia on Sunday. It was the first visit of an Indian Prime Minister to the country. He said Mongolia has an important role in India's Act East policy. India also announced a $1 billion line of credit to the country.
We will take our economic partnership to a new level. Today, I am pleased to announce that India will provide a line of credit of $1 billion to support expansion of Mongolia's economic capacity and infrastructure.
Prime Minister Modi, who assumed office a year ago, has been promoting his ambitious Make in India initiative world over, calling on international business houses to invest in the country. The campaign is aimed at transforming India into a global manufacturing destination.
The NATO and the European Union have condemned the rise in Taliban attacks targeting foreign nationals in Afghanistan. The country has witnessed a sharp increase in violence against foreigners in government establishments ever since it announced the spring-summer offensive last month.
Afghan President Ashraf Ghani has condemned the killing of civilians and foreign aid workers by the Taliban. A British contractor working for the EU police mission and 2 other people were killed in a suicide bomb blast in the Afghan capital on Sunday. The NATO Resolute Support Mission also called it a dreadful attack. Despite claims that they will not target civilians, the attack is another example of how the Taliban continues to demonstrate complete disregard for innocent women and children when perpetrating their attacks. We are appalled by the Taliban's lack of concern for civilian casualties, particularly women and children, as they continue their campaign of terror against those trying to move Afghanistan forward. Brigadier Jen Wilson Schaffner, Deputy Chief of Staff for Communications of the Resolute Support, said in a statement. According to reports, the Taliban bomber rammed his explosives-laden vehicle on a convoy near the Kabul International Airport, killing 3 people and injuring at least 23 others. The attack on the EU convoy came hours after the insurgents claimed responsibility of another blast in Kabul earlier in the day and an attack on the Kabul University late on Saturday. The Taliban had last week attacked a guest house in the city, killing 14 people, including many foreign nationals. The militia, which was ousted from power in 2001 by the NATO, had in April announced the spring-summer offensive, its annual fighting season. This came despite the Afghan government and the Taliban began its first informal talks in Qatar, aiming to end the decades-long conflict.
The twin earthquakes in Nepal are being called the deadliest to hit the Himalayan nation on record after the number of people killed in the disaster crossed 8,500. The massive tremor last month triggered at least 240 aftershocks and injured around 20,000 people.
Nepal, which boasted of its welcoming Himalayan peaks till a month back, now stands as a heap of rubble. April's monster Templar and its aftershocks took as many as 8,583 lives in the country till Sunday. This included over 8,430 being killed last month and at least 140 last week. The 7.8 magnitude earthquake on April 25th also demolished more than 500,000 homes before Nepal faced its second major quake on Tuesday that brought down already weakened buildings and infrastructure. While 58 foreigners died in the two earthquakes, 112 foreigners were still unaccounted for, Prime Minister Sushil Koirala said on Sunday. The previous deadliest earthquake to strike the country was in 1934, when at least 8,519 people were killed. The number of houses destroyed in last month's quake is over 200,000, more than twice the number in 1934 Templar, which stood at 80,893. Dozens of landslides continue to block access to remote villages in Dulakha district, one of the hardest hit. Scores in Singati village are still missing as rescue workers are yet to remove debris to recover bodies. Following the massive quakes, this year's summit season to Mount Everest has also been called off. The UN aid workers said they are facing a monumental challenge in Nepal due to logistic and terrain issues, making it a challenge to access people in remote regions.
We're facing a monumental challenge here as to support the government in these districts and to have a credible response to that. And given the fact that the logistical issues, the terrain issues, and the fact that we are facing a monsoon which is slowly but surely coming towards us.
The two Templars have damaged property worth $10 billion according to the Nepal government, and some 800,000 people have been directly affected.
They say a friend in need is a friend indeed. Strengthening the relationship, India and Afghanistan have one more success story to boast about. This time it comes straight from a hospital bed. Take a look.
A 30-year-old Afghan army man, Abdul Rahim, now has two Indian hands. The Afghan army bomb disposal expert got a new lease of life after doctors in India's southern Kerala successfully transplanted a new pair of hands on him. Rahim had lost his hands while trying to defuse mines in Kandahar 3 years ago. This is claimed to be the first case of successful dual hand transplant on any Afghan by the medical team in Kochi. Rahim can now manage to do several daily routine activities and is still recovering and undergoing physiotherapy exercises.
I'm very happy. Thank you, total Indian people. My Afghan guys, one new zindagi.
The medical team from Kochi, comprising 20 surgeons and 8 anaesthetics, operated on Rahim for 15 continuous hours, successfully overcoming the risk of rejection and blockage of blood vessels. Each hand required connecting 2 bones, 2 arteries, 4 veins and about 14 tendons.
It was a bit more difficult than the other one in one sense, because the procedure, the hand was procured in another slightly far away theatre, and then the coordination had to be a bit more meticulous in this particular case.
Rahim received hands from a 54-year-old brain-dead accident victim from Kerala. This is the medical team's second such complicated double-hand transplant.
Well, that's the way it was in South Asia this evening. Before we conclude, the top stories once again. India and South Korea agree to boost defence cooperation. UN seeks humanitarian help for Myanmar's Rohingya migrants. And Indian doctors perform hand transplant on former Afghan army captain. Now our viewers can watch the show on SouthAsiaNewsline.com. You can also visit us on Facebook.com/SAsiaNewsline and follow us on Twitter @SAsiaNewsline. That's all in tonight's edition. We'll see you same time tomorrow. Good night.